y'all, it's Jennifer from Predominantly Paleo, here to yak about yucca. Again, turns out you guys had a ton more questions, so I'm going to help answer them the best I can. So, how big should your pieces of yucca be when you put them in the pot to boil? Honestly, if you're using a piece of yucca about this big, don't be afraid to just cut it into 3 coarse pieces. You really, by keeping them bigger, are going to prevent having to use more coconut flour in the end. So the smaller you get, the stickier the dough is going to be. So cut them big, it's okay, your dough is going to be awesome. So, is yucca the same as yucca? Well, I'm from Texas and we all call it yucca, but it's not the same thing. Yucca is this starchy tuber right here. That's what we're using in the recipes. Yucca is actually an ornamental plant that's got flowering parts, and although is said to have some edible parts, that's not what we're using to make our dough. Another question we had was, how do you store yucca? If you're buying it fresh in the produce section, you'll find it like this, and it can be stored at room temperature. If you want to freeze it, I have not experimented with freezing the actual dough. So what I would do if I wanted to freeze it for a while is actually skin it, cut it, and then set it aside in the freezer in big chunks to pull out and boil later. So another question was, can you store the cooked dough? I have refrigerated the cooked dough before, and what you want to do is make sure it's not coming into contact with any air. So I would either put a piece of saran wrap around the cooked dough, or maybe put it in a bag of some sort, but the air is going to dry it out. So if you want to store it in the fridge, make sure you've got it covered. So another question was, do I like to measure before or after boiling? I measure the yucca after boiling, that way it's fork tender and it's easier to get into the cup and get a more accurate measure. Can you use other oils and fats when working with the yucca dough? You totally can. You may have noticed I favor avocado oil. A lot of the reason for that is that it's got a really high smoke point, so if I'm frying, it's a good option, and I love the flavor. You can sub in coconut oil, which also has a high smoke point, or whatever your preferred fat for cooking is. If you tolerate grass-fed butter, that's always an option. I don't do dairy anymore, so the avocado oil has been a lifesaver for me when it comes to cooking or frying at a high temperature. So what are some other ways that you can prepare yucca or cassava? Really, it's endless. As long as it's prepared properly, where you're not going to get those toxins from the skin. You can boil it, you can fry it, you can mash it like mashed potatoes, and top it on top of a shepherd's pie like I did on the blog. There's really a ton of options. You can make it savory or sweet to your preference, and really just have fun with it. So how are you going to clean that Vitamix after you finish blending this sticky yucca dough? I'm not going to lie, it can get a little messy. So I like to put hot soapy water in it right away and let it soak. There's also directions with your Vitamix that tell you how to blend it again with hot soapy water after you've done your blending. You can follow your machine's instructions if you want to go that route. So my most common question by far, where do you find this stuff? Oddly enough, it's actually pretty common. You can look at your mainstream grocer near the other tropical fruits like plantains, papayas, mangoes, and pineapples. If you can't find it there, check your local health food store or Whole Foods. And if you can't find it still, check with an Asian or Latin local market. They often have it and it is plentiful. Alrighty y'all, I think that about wraps it up. If I haven't yacked enough about yucca for your liking, you can always find me at predominantlypaleo.com, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks y'all.